Everyone ready? Okay. You can remove your masks if you like, board supervisors. You're going to be speaking too. So.
Thanks.
Hello and welcome to the regular meeting of the East Lampeter Township Board of Supervisors for Monday, July 20th, 2020. My name is Corey Meyer and I'm the chairman. I want to inform all participants that this meeting is being recorded. Due to the COVID-19 virus and Governor Wolf's recent orders limiting indoor gatherings, in-person attendance for this meeting is being limited to a maximum of 25 people who will be observing social distancing. Additionally, based upon the order of the Secretary of Health regarding face coverings, all participants in the public meeting room are required to wear a face covering unless they fit into one of the order's exceptions. When speaking while maintaining social distance, participants may remove their face covering. Therefore, this meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. General public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. Public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Township is expecting to utilize this vehicle for all future public meetings during and after the COVID-19 crisis. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website and will be posted on the front of the Township building. Township will also be recording the meeting and making it available for viewing via the Township website and YouTube channel, while every effort will be made to ensure the live streaming and website are working. East Lampeter Township takes no responsibility for and cannot be held liable for the unavailability of live streaming in part or in full due to technical issues beyond its control. Live streams and recordings of all meetings remain the property of East Lampeter Township and are protected by copyright. Access to live streams and recordings of meetings is provided for personal and non-commercial use. Video, images, and audio must not be altered, reproduced, or republished without permission of East Lampeter Township. Joining me in the room observing social distancing are Vice Chair John Blowers, Supervisor Ethan Demme. Joining the meeting via Zoom, Supervisor Glenn Eberly. Glenn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Also participating to support the board and present in the meeting room are Ralph Hutchison, Township Manager, and Chief Steve Zerby, Chief of East Lampeter Township Police. For those board members joining via Zoom, we've confirmed you can hear me. It's suggested that board members joining on Zoom mute their microphone during the meeting until they wish to speak, make a motion, or vote. All votes will be taken by roll call so that they can be properly recorded. In order to accommodate public comments at this meeting, the Township will be accepting public comments in writing or via email. Instructions for the submission of public comments are available on the Township website. I want to remind everyone that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township website for viewing. We'll now proceed with the meeting agenda. Please join me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have public comment for non-agenda items only. Any comments, Hutch?
Nothing's been submitted.
Okay, looks like Bill. Don't see anyone from the public per se. Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda, approval of the minutes of the Monday, June 15th, 2020 regular meeting. That's A on the consent agenda. B, we have approval to pay all funds, pay invoices from all funds for a total of $901,870.83. Of the bills to be paid, following significant amounts are included. We have $178,915.49 to Allen Myers LP for milling and in-place paving materials, $14,000 to Mayor Duzel for 2019 year audit services, $19,585.17 to Town Planning Partnership for Bridgeport Mobility Plan Consulting Services, $23,089.85 to Alpha Space Control for painted traffic markings, and then finally $145,855.62 to Martin Paving Incorporated for 2020 road surface treatments, and that's for double oil and chip. So those are the items for the invoice from all funds. And then we have 2 financial security releases. The first one is for the True Hotel Land Development, 2310 Lincoln Highway East. Looks like the applicant's completed all the required public improvements for the development, and township engineer has provided a letter indicating acceptance of the construction and recommends full release of the remaining financial security for these improvements. And then lastly, D, financial security release for the stormwater management plan at 110 Hartman Bridge Road. Applicants completed all required public improvements for this development. Township engineers provided a letter indicating acceptance of the construction, recommending the release of the remaining financial security for these improvements. Any public comment for the consent agenda? Okay, I'll accept a motion for the consent agenda.
Make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Motion's made.
Second.
Second by Ethan. Any other comments from the board or the public on the consent agenda? Okay, all those in favor will do a roll call. We'll take Glenn first.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Ethan?
Aye.
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Yeah. John?
Aye.
Aye. And Chair, aye. Motion passes for the consent agenda. Next on the agenda, we have old business. We have conditional use decision regarding Devon Creek. Actually, I failed to mention, I'm sorry. Did want to mention a few things. One, about before we get there, 2020 census, please take the census. Pennsylvania's response rate is at 65.3%. Lancaster County, we have a response rate of 74.1. East Lampeter is at 72.4%. It's super simple, takes just a few minutes online to do it. Manheim Township, just as a comparison for a neighboring township, they're at 77.9%, and West Lampeter is at 80.2%. Again, we're at 72.4, so we have some progress to make there. We've been floating around 70 last meeting, or
Yeah,
68.
it's gone up a little bit
Yeah.
since the last meeting,
Yeah.
not a whole lot.
So I guess my push isn't helping. It's on the website. It's been on Facebook. We've done videos. Please, if you can take the census before someone comes knocking on your door to get the information from you. And secondly, just wanted to encourage township residents to participate in the online survey for the Bridgeport Mobility Plan. Even if you're not a township resident, if you drive through Bridgeport, which many people do, it's a confluence of multiple municipalities. Please take that online survey. And then lastly, very similar to that plan, there's an online survey for the old Philadelphia Pike Corridor, which is a little longer, goes anywhere from Bridgeport to through Lake Hawk Township to our east. Again, takes 5-10 minutes to take that survey. Definitely helps the planning commission and the local municipalities with what folks want in those corridors. Okay, I'll move on to 5A, conditional use decision regarding Devon Creek. I'm going to pass it off to our solicitor, Susan Pfeiffer, who has a few comments regarding that item.
So as you know, in hearing back in June, we completed the hearing and closed testimony. Following the hearing, I then spoke with each of you individually to poll your thoughts on a decision. Based on those individual conversations with you, I drafted a decision for the board to consider. The decision has 38 findings of facts. It has a discussion section, a conclusion, and the end result of the draft is that it approves the request of the applicant subject to 27 conditions that were agreed upon between township staff and the applicant. So at this point, the decision is up for your consideration because the three of you who are here present tonight participated in both hearings, the one from 2019 and then the one from June. Mr. Buckwalter is not here tonight, and Mr. Everly did not participate in those hearings. It would just be the three of you who would be having a discussion and then rendering a decision on the application.
Mhm.
Okay, any questions for Susan first? Okay, so again, testimony is closed, so this is essentially just a board discussion between the three of us physically here. Ethan, comments, questions?
Just some general comments. The process, I think, could have been a little more transparent in our deliberation. We had the last public hearing, we had some deliberation, but that was prior to then. After that, we did meet with Solicitor Piper to discuss some of the actual legal implications because we're not the attorneys in the room. So we haven't had a chance to deliberate since that point. I also believe that we should have had at least more than one option to consider rather than just one decision drafted and handed to us for decision. It doesn't give you a lot of opportunity to deliberate and say, do I like this option or this option? We merely have one option to you, an up or down vote on. And then those options could have been deliberated on in a public meeting. And also the timing of it, we did only just get this draft 3 hours before our first public meeting of the evening. So while we've had a chance to review it, it's been a speed read to this point.
Susan, the timeline to make a decision on this is it's 45 days from the end of testimony?
Correct.
Okay, and so end of testimony was a couple weeks ago, right? Okay.
And typically, in terms of the preparation of the decision, that is the purpose of soliciting the board and trying to determine where I believe the majority of the board is going to land on a decision. And I know that it was not unanimous. Again, you're free to reject the decision. It is a draft for consideration tonight, but typically we only prepare one draft decision, especially if we feel that the majority of the board is leaning in one direction.
Are there, so, clearly the first one to, up till Exhibit A, so the first 10 pages are just statements of fact. So I'm assuming, or findings of fact, and, really just summary of what had happened up to that point. I'm assuming you don't have any issues with anything in those first 10 pages.
I do.
You do? Okay.
But in order to review them more carefully, I'd have to have more time. But in a cursory review of them, there's some finer points that the way they're drafted in conjunction with the rest of it seems to be conflicting.
Okay.
Sure. So most of those findings of fact come directly from the transcript from the 2019 hearing. As you may recall, in June, there was very little testimony that was offered by the applicant. There was really an update in terms of the permit that was issued by DEP and then the agreement that was signed between the applicant and the city. You had copies of all of that in 2019, but really the hearing in June was an update.
Anything specific in the first 10 pages you want to discuss here?
I mean, we could, but I'd have to go through. I have a couple notes, but I don't think it's mainly when you take those into consideration with, for example, the township's conditions, raises questions of which one is a finding of fact, the fact that this meets all the open space requirements, or the fact that they have to go back and resubmit a plan that meets the open space requirements.
Okay.
Point 16.
So point 16, applicant and any successor owners of the community water system shall calibrate the meter no less than less frequent.
No,
No, he's
the proposed or designated an open space, the
Oh.
acre,
You
Not
mean
the-
16 in.
not Exhibit A. Mr.
meet the
Chairman.
requirements of the zoning ordinance,
The findings of fact on page 4.
which was initially designated as a park.
Got it. Okay.
So that
So the
1
proposed-
acre was a park
Yep.
initially, and now it's not. And then the township's condition is that they have to comply with it. They have to resubmit a new drawing, which we have not seen.
Got it. Okay.
That's just one example.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is time to go through these in more detail to then either render a differing opinion or modifications to these items.
Yeah, I don't see how these would be resolved, let me put it that way, cleanly.
Okay.
unless we got those final drawings, which would take a while and would probably change after those were submitted.
So are you asking for a little bit more time, Ethan? Would you like to be able to review this in between this meeting and our next?
I'm not sure if we have initial 45 days.
We don't
I
have
mean,
enough.
we can, do we have enough time to advertise another meeting?
I mean, if we did have time to draft a separate decision to be considered, I'd be okay with that. But if it's just modifications to this one, I don't know if we're going to get there.
You're looking at your calendar. Yeah. Okay.
Certainly, and then one way to resolve this is if you want, if we can strike certain findings of fact from the decision. If you're concerned about the weight of those, and how, if you're concerned they're in conflict with the conditions, we can certainly strike them from the decision. That's an option.
I mean, we have time here. I'm fine. I'd rather get to a point where we can agree if you'd like to go through it.
I could, but I don't know if I still don't think we're going to get there. From the ones, let's see, I'd have to go through. So the notification that the city would not provide public water service for the remainder of the Devon Creek project.
Where are you at? 4?
That's number 4.
Yeah.
Right, that was based on testimony offered by the applicant in 2019. And keep in mind, a lot of these findings of fact are based on testimony that was not opposed. There's no conflicting testimony.
We just didn't get
Understandably,
any.
you can give weight to that
Right.
testimony as to whether you find it credible or not, and that impacts the ultimate decision. But the findings of fact are based on the testimony presented.
Yeah, but the testimony at the last meeting was, my understanding was the city could provide public water services if other conditions were met. Not a blanket, we will not provide water services. That was at the testimony at our last meeting. I didn't see anything presented. I mean, it was just testimony, but there's nothing presented of the city notice of we will not provide water services when they are providing water services for emergency backup.
Do you have any access to the testimony other than, no?
You have the
Based on memory.
transcript.
We didn't have a transcript from the last hearing.
Okay.
Okay. So Ethan, your point is that the wording of 4, you're
I
saying,
disagree with it as a fact.
okay,
I would say that the applicant was, because later on it says that it would be financially I forget the wording here. Financially and physically infeasible, I think is the wording that the applicant used to do it, not that it would not be, could not be done. So those two findings of fact, I think, are in conflict.
okay. You have others?
There's one that is it's a statement of what is written that will happen, but at the end of 40 years, there will be sufficient funds in the homeowner association fund to support the rebuilding of a new facility. And that's what they wrote down in the application. I don't know if that's yeah.
Where are you on that? What
Point
page?
20, page 6, section 24. These are all DEP things. And there was the public space piece. And then the other piece, which I do have a concern with, is my reading of the township's conditions. While I may agree with them, I don't think are fairly applied, since we're not applying those same conditions to other public utilities operating in East St. Peter Township. We're putting an extra burden on this public utility as opposed to the other ones, which isn't fair.
Okay.
So after those are the big ones that jump out. I don't think I have any other significant ones. But public space, the addition
Yep.
of whether or not the city would not provide public water service.
Yep.
Because my understanding was they would if certain conditions were met, which we don't know what those were.
Yeah, and I don't recall the details of that coming up at,
Well, it was, I think we asked for them at different times, but that was between the city and the applicant, and they settled
right,
and didn't provide us
the
any
details.
details of what happened.
Yep.
What went on in the room when it happened.
So would you be looking for the details of, essentially they're describing that as being a high cost and, essentially not feasible to do. You want to understand what makes it.
Yeah,
You know.
which is what, I mean, the last meeting, that's what I asked the applicant for, was what were those things? And they said that was in the settlement
Agreement
between
the city.
the applicant and the city, which again, they don't have to give us.
Yep.
So correct, they don't have to provide that to them.
Correct.
So your concern with the finding of fact here and/or, statements made during the collection of testimony, Ethan, you're saying it says the city would not provide. You're saying, look, that's not really correct. It's that you and the city couldn't agree on what that would be. You don't have to tell us that, but, would it alter your approach to this?
Yeah, I mean, having that information would be helpful, which is why I'd asked for it at the last meeting. But again, the applicant's not required to divulge that
To provide
information.
it for us, yeah. Okay. The open space,
Up until then, it's just a matter of the applicant says if it's financially and physically unfeasible. I mean, I accept that that's the fact that they said that, but they didn't have anything to back that statement up.
Yeah.
Presented in evidence.
Right. And there was no counter to that at that
Correct.
point either. So,
right.
that's what they said. So that was fact.
Because the person they disagreed with, they settled.
Understood. Yep. John, you were saying something.
The open space
Yep.
provision.
Yep.
Ethan, let's talk about that a second. Is there, some way that you would present that would be something that we could settle with this applicant, that we could bring into this decision-making to settle with the applicant?
Yeah, you could just strike point 12 as a condition. It eliminates that. It's the township's condition that that the applicant has to remove this and submit a revised open space planning calculation, which can ensure compliance. And the applicant said, yeah, it won't impact the open space.
So
I don't necessarily, I haven't seen anything that backs that claim up.
So you would strike 12 in totality and not add any other language into it.
That would remove that piece that wouldn't remove my main issue with the decision, but it would clean up that one. I mean, this is what we had discussed, was these extra conditions, I think, are all of them have to do with things that DEP should be doing as a regulatory oversight body. We're not a regulatory oversight body of public water systems, and I don't think we should be. And I think by adding extra conditions for how you're running a public water system, I think is unfair if we're not equally applying those to all other public water systems in the township.
So you would remove, what about the second sentence in 12? In other words, if this,
Well, then they're revising the plan, they have to resubmit it anyway. It's implied that they'll resubmit a revised open space plan.
I was hoping you would keep that second sentence. That's why I was asking the question.
we would, from your comments, I'm gathering you're concerned that there is not a provision that allows for them to actually comply with that part of the ordinance.
Yeah, those are my problems with this decision. I mean, overall,
Yeah.
I have other issues, but that would be for another decision to be drafted that could recognize those, a different way of viewing it.
You want to share any of those with us now to at least get a sense from the rest of the board?
Sure. I mean, fundamentally, this is a conditional use, which is changing the plan that the applicant brought forward to us, which adds a public utility on site that was not part of the original plan. And I oppose adding a public utility, which is something we regulate in our zoning ordinance.
Is there a way that it's not incumbent upon us to suggest a solution to the applicant? I
Correct.
get that.
And there are solutions that do exist. That's why I have concerns with stating as a material fact that they couldn't get the water from the way they originally had in the first initially approved plan.
One of the things you need to remember is the applicant has proposed this as a modification of a conditional use, not a special exception request as a public utility. So you have to decide the case that's before you, either granting it or denying it. And it is a modification of that requirement for this type of a development that they have public water. So they're coming to you because they can't get public water from the city based on their testimony and based on what they've offered so far. So that's the decision before you. I think it's a stretch to recategorize the application as something that it's not.
I mean, my read of, and depends on, I'd have to review the old zoning ordinance from the time, but currently a public utility would be a special exception in this thing, but it would go to the zoning hearing board.
Right, but the problem is this board has approved this use as a conditional use many years ago, subject to certain requirements. So it's a modification of those requirements.
That's my understanding. That's where I'm coming from is that the previous board approved a plan for this and put conditions, and one of those being you can get public water.
Yeah.
And testimony that we've heard over a number of meetings and over a year of us looking at this is the applicant is saying, I don't have a plan to come to you to get public water from the provider of public water. And by their testimony, they're saying they do not have that. And so they're saying, we went to DEP, we got a solution. This is the solution that we're presenting to you. I don't feel as though we can go back and start to put in place other conditions that weren't there in 2008. My thoughts of it.
The simple fact of that piece is you had an initial plan which says we're going to do this development and it's conditioned on having public water from Lancaster City. Later in the process, the applicant realized or decided that's not feasible for us to go that route. We want to now change it to this other one, which adds a use. And I'm not in favor of changing the plan.
So the conditions that were put in place in 08,
I still
you
support.
still support those conditions. You just are not accepting the applicant's testimony that they can't meet that condition.
Correct. I don't think that's been verified independently.
Okay.
Okay.
I see where you're coming from. So thank you for that. Were there other items you wanted to mention?
No, I think that's
Okay.
the gist of it.
So from your perspective, how would you want this to be handled? We have limited time.
So we can vote on this. We'll see what happens after that. But ideally, in my ideal world, I would like to review the statements and documentation that led up to them making the determination that it was not financially or physically feasible.
And how would we do this in the time frame to not get deemed approval?
I think you
Can't.
can't.
Okay.
We can't.
Okay.
We can't do it in that time.
I mean, it's just a special meeting, but the problem is you can't solicit more testimony.
Right.
You
Correct.
have to make the decision based on that.
Right.
And the provider of public water was not here at that testimony to tell us that they couldn't provide water to this.
You have testimony from the applicant, his engineer, and his expert who worked on the permit. There was no testimony that contradicted that. So you have to budget the balance and weigh that testimony.
Based upon what we had, based upon what was presented to us. Okay.
Right. And there was no, I don't recall, at least at the last hearing, cross-examination of that to question that in any way, or, I mean, like you said, you did ask a question. I do recall that, but the details were slim. There weren't.
And at the
details.
previous one, we asked, but at the time litigation was ongoing. So
Right. I recall
they're
that.
not going to
Yep.
share any information because
Sure.
I asked the same thing then.
Right. Okay. So we have a decision of the board in front of us listing findings of fact. Understand that you have some questions or concerns about some of the findings of fact. You have, I'm going to say you, Ethan, recommendations to strike a certain condition, condition 12.
And all conditions related to the management of a community water supply.
Which is a good number of those. And again, your feeling there is that those are DEP responsibilities.
Yeah, it's not our responsibility to regulate community water systems.
I know the right of the applicant needs conditions. There's no risk.
John, any comments on any of the conditions, either 12 or any of the ones related to community water system? Any conditions?
I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't.
I believe the conditions put proper, let's call it oversight, and reduce the risk of the community, frankly, with those conditions being in place. I'm not familiar with DEP's full responsibilities, but having those conditions in place make me feel a lot more comfortable without those conditions compared to not having those conditions in place, for sure.
Susan, is there any reason that we should be concerned about these conditions? Are we taking on a burden for the taxpayers of the township? Are we holding the applicant standards that are overstepping our authority? Or is there something here that you should be concerned about in the way we're framing this and taxpayer liability in the township?
No, I don't see a legal reason to not impose a condition, particularly since they've been worked out with the township staff and the mayor.
Ethan, you would remove point 12, is what I hear you saying.
Point 12, I think, can,
Will take care of itself. Is that what you're?
no, I think that point 12, I haven't seen anything that verifies whether that's feasible. If the other findings of fact are findings of fact.
Okay.
Condition number.
Condition
12.
number 12. Condition number 12 says its applicant shall remove the lot on which the well, storage tank, and building are located from all open space requirements. Applicant shall submit a revised open space plan and calculations to ensure compliance with the township zoning ordinance. I would like to know that there's a revised plan coming forward that the
Yeah.
applicant would be able to comply with the requirements of the ordinance. That's what
Right.
I'm
And actually, yeah.
concerned with.
Yeah.
So to me, 12 looks like it's saying that.
Yeah, as well, 23, applicant shall provide a revised phasing plan for the entire project. But there was,
Yeah, now those ones, my point is, point 12, I think conflicts potentially with, in the findings of fact, 16, 17, I'm sure it's 16, yeah, 16, 17, and 18,
okay, so 16.
which are whether or not they can.
Okay, so 16 talks about the size. The proposed well and pump house are located within a designated open space lot of approximately 3.2 acres, meeting the requirements under the zoning ordinance for minimum open space area. The open space lot was originally designated as a park. Proposed structures would only cover approximately 1 acre of the open space lot. So 2.2 acres
Instead of 3.2.
instead of 3.2. And then you said 17. Mr. Vernarchuk testified that the proposed public water supply improvement facilities will not impact the ability of the open space lot to be used for passive and or active recreation. So,
I don't think particular findings are coming directly from the customer.
Right.
The point of the condition of the staff is put in place is to actually do those calculations and verify.
That's
Yeah.
why,
Yeah.
So I
as,
think
right.
we're losing anything by having the findings of fact.
yeah,
That's how they present it.
yeah,
yeah.
right. I mean, you're actually going to do the calculation to figure out, does it meet the open space requirements or not?
The conditions are saying to the applicant, here are things that you said, therefore we're saying, good, meet these conditions to verify that those things are
Yeah.
occurring. That's
So the
the,
applicant shall submit a revised open space plan and calculation to ensure compliance with the township zoning ordinance. They may not be able to ensure compliance, and then that's a whole different issue. Okay. Thank you for the comments, Ethan. Thanks for the questions, John.
Yep.
Okay, so again, we have this finding of fact. No, he's not, he's
oh,
not
that's
allowed
right,
to.
that's right, sorry.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's just, so we have the decision of the board, or I'm sorry, we have the findings of fact, we have the conditions outlined,
We have a draft
we have a
in
draft
front of us of a decision.
of a decision, and we have 45 days from the end of the testimony to make a decision on this draft. And we have a meeting tonight, and we don't have another meeting between now and our next meeting
Right.
within that 45 days.
And the three of us here this evening were part of that meeting. There was a fourth.
Yes. Dave was here for both.
Mr. Buckwalter,
Yep.
but he is not here tonight. So the decision has to be unanimous. The decision has to be unanimous, Susan. It can be 2-1. It cannot be a unanimous decision tonight. Okay. 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 So let me try this, Mr. Chairman, if I
Sure.
can. So the proposed decision in front of us, with the findings of fact, and testimony, evidence submitted, to the board, during, the previous hearing. I hear Mr. Demi's, concern about several of the findings of fact, but I have no reason to, I was present for the same presentation that we all were, and I have no reason to doubt that these were items that were presented by the applicant, or questions that were asked by the board. These are all, I have no reason to doubt that these weren't, that these are in fact, directly from that testimony. I think the conditions that we put in place, 27 conditions, I think are helping me to feel comfortable that the items that the applicant presented, we're going to be able to go back to them and say, well, these are the conditions that we put in place based upon what you had presented to us. So I have no reason to doubt that. I'm comfortable with that. In 2008, when the prior board, prior to myself coming on, although I was in zoning, the vision for this parcel was something that I believed then as a citizen, and I believe now, the vision for it was captured in the conditions that were placed upon the applicant. Hoped greatly that public water could have been provided to this, and I was on the board. I did agree that the board was doing the right thing by trying to get public utilities to that. The applicant has presented to us over a number of years that they are not able to provide that and meet that condition, and so they've come up with an alternative. DEP has approved their plan, and I have no reason to continue to prevent that option from moving forward. I think it meets the expectations of the community at the time for putting this kind of development and trying to preserve open space by putting in place some neo-traditional design communities with some very unique aspects to it. So I'd make a motion that we support the draft decision before us, and we put before the applicant these 27 conditions, and we approve their alternative plan for the provision of water for all but, I believe, phase one. Phase one is under this decision. Phase one houses would still be provided, Susan, is that correct? With the water service that they currently have as this is. Yeah, I understand. Okay. I'll put that before. That's my
Okay.
motion.
So just to be clear, your motion is to approve the document in front of us with no changes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct. And, yeah, to approve, exactly, yes, to approve the application subject to those 27 conditions, yeah.
Okay. The motion was made. Is there a second? Okay, I'll second. Okay, any other comments?
No, I don't have any further. I appreciate the opportunity, but no, I don't have any other further comments.
Okay, we'll do a voice vote. Vice Chair John Blowers?
Aye.
In favor, sorry. Motion in favor, aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay? And an aye. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, applicant.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have 5B, Police Department Use of Force Statistics. Chief Zerby is here to share some information. Before I hand it off to Chief, I just wanted to say thank you for your leadership over the last, I don't know, how long you've been chief now?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. I know the last month or so has been trying, last couple months. So I just wanted to thank yourself, Detective Chris Jones, State Police, and many other townships that have been helping, the FBI as well, plus all the volunteers that I've been seeing daily going out searching for Linda Stoltzfus. So thanks again for the department's hard work.
Thank you, and you're welcome, and I'm sure all of them would say the same thing. So at the last board meeting, I had made a presentation on use of force statistics over the last 3.5 years, from all of 2017 forward through the half of this year. And I wanted to come back and just kind of give a little more information as to the statistical value of why the numbers are what they are, or actually what is driving those numbers. And the first thing I'll do, I'm not going to read through this word for word. You guys are able to read it yourselves, but I do want to point a couple of highlights out. But the first thing I wanted to point out to you in the last 4 pages, which those are the, and I apologize for the size, but I had to shrink that down to get everything on there. That's just about every piece of statistical data that would be important for you to know from each use of force event from the last 3.5 years. Everything on there should be apparent to you, except likely the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th and 7th column where it says taser, it says hit, and then it says P/D. So a hit is going to be, if there's a 0 there, it means that they missed. If there's a numeric there, a 1 through whatever, it's how many cycles were used from either the prong deployment of the taser or what we call a direct drive, which is physical contact of the end of the taser to the subject. And then and that's what the P and the D stand for in the next column, prongs or direct drive, just for clarification. Some of the things I would point out to you is the fact that in the 3.5 years, we're looking at over a total of 70,000 calls when you look at these numbers. So 2017, as I stated the last time, we had 22 uses of force. 2018, we had 18. 2019, we had 32. And this year, and this number's still good, we have 11. So as was pointed out, the numbers seem to have been climbing. This year, 2020, seems to be coming back down a little bit. But in each of those years, and actually in 2 of the 3.5 years represented, over a third, or at least a third or over a third of those use of force reports are represented by mental health calls. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have been aware of that statistic prior to actually doing the research on that. And so that's somewhat telling. There's, I wanted to point out the 9 different pointing of firearms. We had a question about that last time. There's 9 of those in the last 3.5 years. I think the important point to point out there is each one of them is a different officer. 9 different officers, 9 different times that a weapon was pointed. And a lot of these uses of force are culminating. There's a large number of individuals who are either fleeing, whether it be on foot or fleeing by way of vehicle pursuit, and or fleeing on foot after a vehicle pursuit. And in many of those instances are resulting in a use of force because at bare minimum, you have to go hands-on with this person just to catch them and take them to the ground. In many instances, these officers have no idea why the person's running, if the person is armed. So there's a lot of safety concerns, and when hands aren't readily visible, and you don't have hands under control, that's what the officer is trying to do, get the hands under control, because any type of danger, 90-some% of the time, is going to come by use of a suspect's hands. So whether it be use of a taser or pointing a firearm or just laying on of hands in tackling somebody and getting cuffs on them, a lot of those numbers are represented by fleeing and pursuit-related calls. And the other number is just driven by combative subjects. There just is an increase in people that are willing to fight physically with officers when they're being placed under arrest. But that's not the high number. That's not what's driving these numbers. I would consistently say that between the mental health calls and the pursuit, whether they be foot pursuit or car pursuits, those two types of calls are driving the volume in these calls or in these uses of force. The other thing that I would...
difference between reporting and investigating.
Good question. So the investigating officer is the officer responsible for the call and all of its paperwork and usually the arrest, if there is one. The reporting officer, not always the same officer, that's the officer who's reporting the use of force. So there are instances where the reporting officer is the backup, and the backup officer has used the force when the investigating officer has not, just depending. Now, in many instances, it's the reporting officer, and then they would be assisted, by the investigating officer, but that's not always the case.
Okay.
So just kind of in summation, I would say that, we have more violent crimes in progress. We have more subjects that are fleeing from us. And we have a fairly high volume of mental health calls that result in use of force incidents as those things that are driving these numbers. On the positive end, 2020 is, by its just the numerics alone, is down. So we have 11 uses of force this year. And if that were to carry out for the rest of the year, that would be much like we had reported in 2017, with 22. And I think the last thing I wanted to say to you, gentlemen, is that I think that we had mentioned before that maybe a biannual review of use of force between one or more of yourselves and myself and the township manager even. We meet twice a year and we go over these use of force events and answer questions, discuss them. Was there something that was good about it? Was there something that was bad about it? Is there something we can do better? Those type of things. The last thing I'll throw out is that in all of these instances, each one of these has been reviewed by the shift supervisor, been reviewed by the division lieutenant, been reviewed by myself, and each one has been deemed to be justified. So unless you have some other specific questions about them, I'll let you read over the other stats, and I can always come back and answer questions as well too. It's no problem.
First of all, thank you. Thanks for coming back, and thanks for putting things in perspective. The 22 out of 70,000 clearly puts things in perspective. How many calls you get compared to that. I would love to be part of that. That sit down. I think whoever the chair is should be, responsible for that. I think it also ties to the work I'm doing on the, the state committee. I think this is very helpful. I think, if I was sitting down with you in a meeting, I think the question I would ask is, what tools can we help the officers with related to mental health? Because that is such a high of the occurrences. It doesn't appear to be as much in 2020, but you take 2017, 2018, 2019, 21%, 33%, 36% of all uses of force, that was the reason. So,
Right.
yeah, so
Well,
let us know,
We have crisis intervention team training. We have, I'm taking a guess here, but I think about 8 members of the department that are already certified as crisis intervention team members. We have 4 other officers lined up to go this
Right.
year yet.
Right.
And that's something where I'm trying to work through. It's I believe a week-long training, so trying to work officers through
Sure.
to get through it. And many of the tools to deal with people in crisis, in specifically in mental health situations, are given to the officers in that training.
Yeah.
So, and there's other trainings too that we've used to send officers to in the past. That quite frankly, I hadn't seen the classes being offered here as recently in the past, probably 5 years. And it may just be that they're just not local to our area. It gets difficult when you have to include overnight stays and drive times and things of that nature.
Sure.
But
That
we'll
would be-
continue with the CIT training.
Total would be 12 is what you said, the total, 8 who've been through and 4 who are going through.
Correct.
So 12 of the 38.
12 of the 38, give or take a number, yes.
Yeah, yeah. The use of tasers, Chief, when did it come on? 14, 15?
Yeah, I think we've had them about 6, 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And, it's a tool. I think some people are rightly so, maybe very overly cautious about the use of a taser, but the taser does allow the officer to bring a situation under control or quell a combative subject with much more quickly. It's
Yeah.
just the long and short of it. It's
Yeah.
just more quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I've not studied it, Ethan. Maybe you've looked into it further, that just what a taser, can do to someone. But I think versus, potentially trying to restrain someone physically, and that can perhaps get to the point where it becomes dangerous to either the officer or the, the person.
Very true.
Tasing, I'm assuming, stops the situation immediately.
Not always, but usually in the vast majority of cases, yes. And there are the rare case where somebody is, I'll just throw out an example, is high on some type of a narcotic to the point where the taser just doesn't faze them. It doesn't have the same reaction.
Yeah, the state is very helpful. Appreciate it and look forward to discussing it more.
Yeah, very much so. Thanks for encouraging this, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman. I appreciate this, Steve. Thanks for taking it to the point where, you've put together some good data and talking about with the team.
Sure.
Never hurts to just stop and take a look to see,
Absolutely.
how behavior is impacting what the organization's effectiveness is, and then to break it down by individuals looking to see, do you have anyone on the force that needs some sort of corrective action? But
And I have that data. I didn't include that data, but I have that data that I could give to you. I don't believe there to be an issue. Let me add that too.
good, that's important. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Good to see you, Steve. Thank you.
You're allowed to leave.
Thank you.
Okay, number 6A, we have the High Associates Stormwater Management Plan 2010, 1740, 1770 Hempstead Road. Who's here for that? Is that Chris?
And Ken, looks like Ken's here too.
Good evening.
Hey.
Chris with RGS Associates. Yes, we are here this evening, myself and Ken Hornbeck from High Real Estate Group, to talk to you about stormwater management plan. If you prefer, I can share my screen, which I have a site plan, which I think will help the discussion.
Yep, sounds good. You should have it now. Now.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, you're able to see that?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so appreciate the opportunity to talk about this plan this evening. What I'd like to do is just I'll give a very brief introduction on the background of the project, where it's located, and then talk about some of the project specifics, our goal for the evening, on where we're at with the project, and then a quick discussion on hopefully moving forward. So in terms of the background, again, this is a stormwater management plan application that was provided to the township. It is for primarily the building I'll circle here, which is 1740 Hempstead Road. We're identifying it as building 380. That is about a 3.7 acre parcel. It is in the BP business district, or business park district of the township. The location is along Hempstead Road. It's on the east side of Hempstead Road. If we were to follow Hempstead Road up to the top of the screen, that would take you to Greenfield Road, and then Route 30 would be situated just to the left or to the southwest of where the project is situated. I say primarily 1740 Hempstead Road because that's really what's driving the stormwater management application. There is also 1770, which is shown right here. Really, the only reason that's part of the rendering is because in this area you can see we show some improvements, and that's primarily to make some pedestrian connectivity. Our goal for the project is we are seeking stormwater management approval and the associated modifications. There are 2 of them with the project. Upon satisfying the outstanding letter from DMA, that letter's revised 7/20/20, that's today. Getting a little bit into the details of the project, again, we're looking at essentially an expansion of the parking lot. So in this area here is where we're just simply introducing impervious area. That impervious area will be managed by a facility on the property here for 1740. And I identified some of the pedestrian connection that's occurring here as well. That's also managed on this property. So what we're trying to do is just have a cohesive design here that manages some of the impervious that's introduced on this property. You're probably aware, obviously, because of the press releases that are out there, the tenant is a single tenant that would occupy both buildings. So that's the reason for the connectivity. They also have a certain parking demand that they would like to see available to them. So that's what proposes the parking lot expansion out the back. There is a little bit of restriping that occurs up in this area, and that's primarily just to address some handicap accessibility access to the buildings. I mentioned the cohesiveness between the buildings. Again, the idea is to provide the ability to travel between the 2 buildings, since this is a single tenant occupying both buildings. There will be some facade improvements that we show here, but I think it's important to recognize that we're not expanding these buildings. So this isn't like your conventional land development plan. It's really a stormwater management plan, and they're also doing some facade enhancements as well. That'll improve the aesthetic appearance of the building as well. As far as the scale of the project, it's just less than 1 acre of disturbance. There is a tight time frame. We work very closely with discussions with staff and with High, and working closely with the tenant and the architect to try to achieve a plan that is acceptable to the tenant that they can move into rather quickly, with some luck in moving things forward. And then from there, we take a step back and take a look at the 2 properties together as a whole. So I'll stop there. That's just, again, a brief introduction and then some detail on the project. If there are any questions, I'll try to answer those for you.
Board, any questions? Chris or Ken?
None, Mr. Chair.
No? Okay. Glenn, any questions?
No,
Okay. Okay. Anything else, Chris, that you wanted to share, or Ken, you wanted to share?
Yeah, this is Ken Hornbeck. Again, just I think everyone's aware that the Armstrong Flooring Inc. is going to be the new tenant that's going to occupy these 2 buildings. They're actually also taking some space in a 3rd existing building, excuse me. But that building is just interior improvements and not a subject of the plan in front of you tonight. But just in full disclosure as well, just so the board's aware, there's 2 phases to the site work. The stormwater management plan that's in front of the board this evening with the improvements that Chris walked you through. And just want the board to be aware that we will be coming back in with a submission for the building that sits to the north with some additional site improvements and some vehicular connectivity between the two parcels. Again, nothing that changes what we're doing with the plan in front of you tonight, but just wanted to share that with the board for full disclosure.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
thanks, Ken.
Okay. Okay, seeing no further questions, we have a motion to approve.
Sure. Make a motion that we approve High Associates Stormwater Management Plan number 20-10 for 1740/1770 Hempstead Road,
Based on letter,
based upon the DMA letter. I can give you a date on that one if you want to, Mr. Chair. July 16th, 2020 from DMA.
If I could add to that as well, there was a revision to that letter that was just issued today. It's the July 16th, 2020 letter, and then it has a revision of July 20. And that revision is essentially a modification that through the plan review, it was asked that we include that as part of our request. And essentially what that is although in the zoning ordinance is where you dictate or control your parking quantity, there's language there that states that if your parking proposed exceeds 125% of the ordinance minimum, that the Board of Supervisors are to grant that approval. And essentially what that's coming down to is it's a mechanism to try to control excessive impervious cover where you're not just having parking for, say, like that Black Friday event. So in this case, we're following the request of the tenant and trying to provide for some additional parking around the back of the building like we had pointed out. And then the second modification was a part of the original application was just related to stormwater management is the loading ratios, which we provided a geology infiltration study for on-site testing that supports that request.
Thank you, Chris. I see it's stated revised July 17th. The letter's dated June 22nd. Is that correct, Chris?
I have dated July 16th, revised July 20th.
yeah, I don't think that would be a DMA letter, right? You responded, there's an RGS letter revised July 17th. Then DMA would have then responded to that. Yeah, we don't have that letter actually.
Yeah.
Apparently was issued today.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to reference that.
yeah, it's right there. So yeah, can you just scroll to?
Is that you?
No, that's July 16.
Yeah, revised.
That's the one you have.
No, we have.
No, I don't. I have.
Yeah, we have July 16, 2020, but doesn't have a
I have
revised
this
date.
one from RGS back to Tara, but then I have this one that we got in the packet from DMA.
That just says July 16th.
It says July 16th, but it says revised July 20. I don't have that revised July 21.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it up there.
Okay.
So Chris, what you just described are the changes. Can you just scroll to the second page?
Sure, absolutely. And again, the addition is right here. The maximum loading ratio is what is the original request that we had in the original application. And then the addition to the letter has to do with item number 2, which was an additional modification regarding the quantity of parking spaces. So that's where the difference is number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I see.
All
It
right.
ties back to
Okay.
the previous slide.
Then I'll reference that revised DMA letter revised July 20.
Yep. Okay. So you have a motion to approve the High Associates Stormwater Management Plan 2010 based on the letter from DMA on July 20th, 2020.
Correct.
Okay, that's the motion.
Yep.
Second by Ethan. Any other comments from the board?
Nope.
Any comments from the public? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Glenn?
Aye.
John? Sorry.
Aye. Sorry.
Ethan? Aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have 7A, Stormwater Management Ordinance Amendment. How do you want to give a little background? I think I'm the one who asked for it, but I'll put you on.
Yes, this was discussed at the last board meeting. The board indicated that you'd like the stormwater management ordinance to be changed so that the threshold for exemption would increase from 500 square feet to 1,000 square feet. And that's all that this amendment would do.
Right. The goal there was just to get consistency with surrounding townships, feedback that we heard from others, and that this was in the standard.
Minimum from the county.
Yeah, minimum from the county. Right?
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Okay. We have an ordinance in front of us who is properly in the paper and all that great stuff.
It has been properly
Okay.
advertised, and
Okay.
you may act on it tonight if you
Okay.
wish.
Make a motion to adopt the stormwater management ordinance amendments as presented.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Second.
Second by John.
Mhm.
Any other comments from, well, it's Lynn and Glenn? Any other comments from the board? Okay. Any comments from the public? Okay. We'll do all those in favor. Actually, we'll do a roll call vote just to follow procedure. In favor, Glenn.
Aye.
Okay, John.
Aye.
Ethan.
Aye.
Aye. Chair, aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, resolution regarding PennDOT winter maintenance agreement. Do this every couple of years, right? Every 5 years?
Every 5 years, we have the board consider an agreement with PennDOT for winter maintenance services that Public Works performs on certain state highways in the township where it makes operational sense for the township forces to, provide winter maintenance services there. So the roads that are involved,
Like Mount Sydney, North Bronx.
so 1001 is Greenfield Road,
Okay.
where it goes over Route 30. So
Okay.
essentially between the off ramps.
Yep.
And then Mount Sydney Road, North Ronks, and Pitney Roads are
Okay.
the others. North Ronks actually goes all the way from Lincoln Highway to Old Philadelphia Pike, there's a portion between Maple and Old Philadelphia Pike, which is outside the township, but operationally it still makes sense for us
Right.
to do that.
Okay.
So
Yep.
PennDOT pays the township a flat rate
Mhm.
for those lane miles of service.
Mhm.
So in a light winter, we do great. In a heavy winter, not so much.
Understood.
But
Understood.
that's just the way they run that program. So,
Okay.
um,
And this is for salting and snow removal.
correct.
Okay. Okay.
Make a motion, we adopt the resolution, 5-year maintenance agreement with PennDOT.
Okay, great. Motion made by Ethan,
Second.
second by John. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, we'll do a voice roll call vote. Glenn?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Ethan?
Aye.
Corey? Aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay. We have managers report, MS4.
Yes, the thing we've been working on most with our MS4 program is looking for and ultimately hiring a stormwater management coordinator. We did receive resumes expressing interest. We're in the process of scheduling interviews right now. And the other really big item is that we implemented the stormwater fee utility billing, which went out with the July quarterly billing with the sanitary sewer charges as well. We have received a lot of phone calls and a lot of inquiries about that new fee. And so we've been working with the property owners and residents to try to explain exactly what the fee is all about and to guide them in reviewing the information that's available on how the fee was developed, how they can pursue credits against that fee, and any other questions that they have. So we're working hard to get everybody that information.
And keep going. Any
Okay.
questions?
Lincoln Highway, we continue to meet with our engineer on the Lincoln Highway projects that we have going. The Rockville Trail project has taken a little bit of a pause, waiting for the the shops at Rockville plan to come forward. Now that the board has moved forward with the zoning amendment, we expect to see that plan in the coming months. So then we'll be able to move forward on the Rockville Trail as well. The phase 3, what we call phase 3 project, which is the section of the highway east of the intersection of Dutch Wonderland and the New Tanger intersection. So going sort of up the hill towards the host and further east from there. The engineer has had the surveyors out. They've been gathering survey information out on the highway to facilitate the design. We expect that process to be completed in roughly the middle of August. And then the preliminary design will move forward in that process. We continue to be hopeful that we'll be able to get through all of PennDOT's requirements and get that project out to bid next year. The Western Gateway project, which is a project that the township's not directly involved in, but we've been included in the process. It's actually a PennDOT project being designed through the county's cooperative agreement that they have with PennDOT. So the county and the township and PennDOT are all working together on that. That's moving forward. They're in the process of getting certain approvals from PennDOT so they can move into preliminary design. And looks like it'll be completed on time. We will need to continue to work with them on allocating the construction dollars needed. At this point, the only dollars that are allocated for the project are design, right-of-way, utility dollars. So we'll need to get to the construction dollars to get that project finished. The other project in the corridor is the trail between Strasburg Pike and Oakview Road, which we were allocated funding through the county's Smart Growth Transportation Program. We don't have the agreement in place yet. We were told that will come early in 21. So we'll go through that process with the county to get that agreement in place next year. And once that's in place, then we can start with the design at that point.
Great.
So yeah, that's what's been happening as far as the streetscape plan.
Okay.
Walnut Street Extension and the Greater Lancaster Heritage Pathway. I know that the folks at High Associates are working very hard to get the Walnut Street Extension designed and under construction. They are designing the pathway at the same time as part of that process and seeking approvals to use the right-of-way from PennDOT. There are some issues that have to be resolved as part of that process with who's going to own it, who's going to maintain it, those sorts of things. We do need to find construction dollars for the pathway, which we have not identified yet. So we continue to look for those opportunities where we can locate those dollars and get them allocated. It does seem to me that over the years, either through the TIP process or other sources through the county planning commission, trails, when they're identified and have an opportunity, they get funding. So I think this is a project that'll merit funding. We just need to get it teed up properly.
Great.
I included pandemic response on here again, just to reaffirm what we've been doing. Staff is here every day working in the office. We do have a system set up for people who come to the building to screen them and hopefully take care of their needs in the vestibule area without having to come into the building. We are following the orders that come from Harrisburg on social distancing, wearing masks, and the other issues that come up through those things. So we're trying to follow those as closely as we can. Park facilities are open. related to the ongoing economic impacts, we continue to monitor the current year budget. Not recommending any additional changes at this point in time, but we are now on the cusp of working to prepare the 21 budget. And so we're going to have to get into some detail in looking at where our revenues are headed going into next year. Some of that's going to be difficult to anticipate, but we're going to try our best to monitor what's happening and make some strong estimates. We are waiting for the county to provide us with information on their federal CARES dollars that we can apply for those expenses that we have had related to COVID response. So as soon as we have that, we'll make that application and seek those reimbursements. I think that's about
Okay,
all that I
great.
have.
Yeah, thank you for keeping local government moving during this interesting time. Really appreciate it. Any comments from board members?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Ethan, second by John. Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Yep, see you guys.
Thanks.
Glenn.
See you,
Thank
Glenn.
you.
Take care.